Hi, Ranjan.
Hi, Rose. Thank you for joining. Thank you. So excited for this conversation. And yes, Rose, you're a life leadership coach based out of UK. And what I see is that you are an expert at helping people become unstuck. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. Expert's very generous. But yeah, that's what I love to work on.
Uh, yes, and probably this conversation is going to help people become unstuck in many different ways with the insights that are going to share. And, I have something. First of all, thank you so much for being with me and being with us at the Ultimate Experience, India, Mumbai. And we are going to talk about your experience. We are going to talk about many different things. But here's something, which I read from your post where you wrote that I went to Mumbai and it transformed my life. And since I returned, my business has skyrocketed. My coaching style has become bolder, more impactful. I'm more at ease with myself than ever before. And I am creating greater connections with my partner and children as a result. I would love to listen about this experience of all these results that happen. But before that, can you please share about how did you how did you come into touch with the being movement, the global being movement, and your journey to Mumbai?
Okay. Thank you. I love sharing this story. So I'm really grateful that you asked me to be here to speak with you. And it's such a joy to be connected with you in this space as well, Ranjan. So thank you. Um, So I have been working as a coach for about 18 months and not that long. So I'm quite new into the coaching world as a coach. Um, and I received life coaching myself probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And the lady Nadia Patel, she was at the Ultimate Experience India. She was my life coach maybe 5 years ago. And when she supported me in my journey to becoming a coach, and she recommended I join a particular coaching school, which was then called the Thriving Muslim Coaching School, and it's recently merged to become. It's got a different name, different guise, and I think they're called the Art of Transformational Coaching. And when I joined that group, the two coaches who were leading it, called Siawash and Asia, were well connected with, they've been, particularly Siawash had worked with Steve Chandler, and they talked about Steve Hardison quite early on, like within the first few weeks of me being there. And Steve's book had come out at that point in manuscript form, and they were both reading it. And they were sharing, some of the insights that they were having from reading this book. And when they said, read a book, I went out immediately and bought the book. And I was so fascinated by what they were sharing and how much of an impact it was having on them, that when I think Asia mentioned, there's a Facebook group you can join, I joined straight away. So it was in like a month of me of becoming a full-time coach, basically.
Hmm.
I joined the group. And I was a little overwhelmed, I have to say, because there was a lot of people posting and it's very busy on the group in a really beautiful way. But I was like, whoa, I'd come from teaching where I hadn't been on social media at all into a space where people were posting multiple times a day. And quite soon after that, Judy created the Arizona event, and I attended that online. And I realized that I'd actually been coming across, because I'd been reading some of Steve Chandler's books before I set myself up as a coach. So then I realized, I have heard of Steve Hardison, but I kept getting confused because there was this reference to another Steve, and I was thinking they were the same person for a while. So I attended the Phoenix event online, And I really enjoyed that, the live stream. And I can't remember the timeline, but either before the event or just quite soon afterwards, Matt Smith put up his hand in the Facebook group and said, I've had a vision of having an event in London. Who's in? Who'd like to help me put this on? I just think this could be amazing. And at that stage, coming out of teaching, I thought, I'm really organized people. I can help. Yeah. So I volunteered. And from then, I was really involved in that process and helping the London team put the London event on. And yeah, so that's how I came to be involved. That's how I've been in the journey. And the London event was magnificent and really an incredible experience for me, and working with so many phenomenal people. And I was speaker liaison at that event, and I also helped do the marketing, and I can't remember what we called it. It was almost like the customer facing pieces. So I worked with Andreas on the Facebook group, and I was also sending out all the emails through Eventbrite to all the attendees. And that being involved in that event shifted a lot of things for me, around really seeing who I was being, how I was showing up, and being involved in working with a group of people who work together in a way that I'd never experienced before, like really respectful, really deep listening, really working as a team, but in every sense rather than just in title, and functioning from agreements. And it was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. And I was very grateful to be involved in that, as well as attending the day itself. So when I heard that there was an event being put on in India,
Rose, I'm sorry interrupting you here, because
please do.
Please do. I see that there are, I would like to inquire more on,
please.
I think there are three phases of this experience that you went through. I would like to know, dig a little bit deeper into what were the major, changes that you felt or saw after joining the Being movement. Then, some of the impact on your life that you had when you were creating the London experience. And then the third, I would want you to talk about the Indian experience. So what was a major difference that you saw in your life and in your profession after you joined the Being movement? What was a major difference?
So coming from love, I'd say that was the biggest thing. I haven't really come from love in work before. And I would go as far to say I probably haven't come from love in life before. It felt very unavailable to me. It's just not something that was on my radar, that I considered, or that I realized was even an option, like a possibility. And it felt initially, I think that was part of the overwhelm. It felt a bit like so unfamiliar being on the Facebook group, on people being so expressive in acknowledging and sharing their love, and people saying, I love you. And I was a bit like, what is this? This is very, this is really.
And probably most of the reactions to any of the posts are like love, and very less likes and more of love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd say that was probably the biggest thing.
Great.
Yeah, at that point.
Okay.
And even just stepping into that and having a call with somebody, a connection call with somebody, and talking to them, and then saying at the end, I love you. And I've only heard that in either from my family or like very close friends, or in a romantic way. Really, my association with this is romance, but it was very clearly wasn't romance what was going on. And so seen as love and experiencing love from somebody, and then realizing that that's actually what I am and I'm able to share with people. That's been huge, and that was a very big, I guess, awakening, for want of a better word, for being on the group for me.
Thank you. So what made you, before I go there, I would like to tell you that Ankush spoke very highly of you. And at one point, he wanted me to talk to you before the experience, but I was already so deep in lots of conversations,
Yeah.
and it was very late by then, and I was not well, and so probably I could not find time to connect with you. But I knew that we will, you're going to be there at the ultimate experience, and we are going to get connected very soon. So what made you decide to come to India and attend the Ultimate Experience India?
And good question. Initially, it was because why would I not? Why would I not go? Because I had experienced such a shift in so many areas of my life from being involved in the London event. And then what happened was I then started buying into my doubts and insecurities and my what ifs and yeah, but thinking. So I started buying into all my thinking. So I wasn't going to go. Then I wasn't going to go. So I decided to go, and then I wasn't going to go. And then I just sort of sat on the fence and didn't decide for ages. I just was like, oh, I could, or I couldn't, or I want to, I don't. And when it came down to it, someone and another coach said to me, "Is like, well, what are you really committed to here? Are you committed to creating this or not? It's fine either way, but just choose." And I realized this is a pattern I have in lots of areas of my life. And I saw that it was a real opportunity for me to choose to create the money, the opportunity, the space, the support at home, etc., to go to India. And so once I saw that, and I realized I can grow, like this is an opportunity for me to grow into creating this. It's going to force my hand, if you like. It's going to force me to step into something that I'm a bit uncomfortable with doing, and being direct about money, about asking for support, about putting my wants, my desires first, which is again as a mother and nothing to do with being a mother, as a familiar pattern of not feeling comfortable doing that. It was very easy for me not to do that. So once I saw that, I was like, right, I know I'm going to grow from this. I know that even if I don't get to India, just the process of trying, of committing to making something happen will allow like a growth for me. And it became not even about going to India. It then became about, okay, how can I play this game where I need to create money? I'm going to fly a really long way for a really short amount of time. It goes against everything that how I would used to travel before I had children. It goes everything against my ideas around where money should be spent. Like, how am I going to play this? How do I step into this? And
Brilliant.
so coming to the event was the icing on the cake, really, for me.
Yes.
It was, it was all about getting there was massive.
Yes. The process itself was so,
Yeah.
It expanded us in so many different ways. It impacted us and everyone in our lives, everyone connected with us, so much so that it would have taken years. My experience is like it would have taken another decade for me to experience this expansion. And
It's like
it's like your
time compresses.
time compressed, and it compressed only maybe not after my decision to talk to Steve Harrison, but it was after my commitment to put this event on and to create this. And thanks to Steve Harrison, who made me commit to this and stood by me and behind me, the man behind the man. And and it impacted me in several different ways. And my relationship with my family, my relationship with my kids, my relationship with my own team members, and it connected me to friends from across the world. And I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to hundreds of our friends, and we would not have connected. I mean, in a different way, it would have taken another decade for us to connect. But this compressed our journey in such a rapid and radical way, I would say, that it has shifted everything. So now I would like you to speak on these four things that you experienced, and what were the most impactful moments that impacted you at the Ultimate Experience India. So first thing, your business has skyrocketed, your coaching style, everything. I would remind you. So I would like you to talk about, your business has skyrocketed, and congratulations first of all on that. And I would love to listen about that.
So by stepping into that idea of expanding what is possible for myself, I realized, and I literally experienced this as I walked past limiting belief or idea or thinking that I didn't even realize I held, and just gently just walk past it and realize, oh, so that was there. I didn't realize that was a thought that was stopping me. Oh, and there's that as well. I didn't realize that was a thing either. That was quite big. And the consequence is that when I got home, I just realized that everything had kind of gone like this. And I was having conversations then with people who I'd been connected. People were, first of all, I started posting about going to India. I started being a lot bolder. I say bolder, but I was just being a lot more open and sharing about what I was doing and why I was doing it. And before I went to India, I just had this idea, I'm going to put on a Zoom call to share this journey with people when I get back. I've never done anything like that before. And I didn't even realize it was sort of a thing. But after we came back, quite a lot of other people started doing the same, which is brilliant, right? Because they'd been sharing, and maybe they'd had experience doing that before. Maybe subconsciously I've seen that and thought, something had gone in. But just doing that felt very bold and kind of outrageous. And I wanted to share more. And I realized the more I share about what I'm up to and my thinking and my process, if you like, my learnings, the more other people are able to connect with me. I don't need to be coming at it from a like a teacher place of this is what you should be doing kind of idea. It's like, this is my journey, and just being honest about it. So that's the first thing, and people have really connected with that. But also what that has then facilitated is me just being a lot less, paying a lot less attention to my thinking around, or just invite people to conversations. And I know this fundamentally, intellectually. I knew this. I was like, yes, this is how to create clients and how to improve my business, is to have conversations. It's 101 for me. That's, but I wasn't necessarily doing that. And so when I came back, I just like, this is what I need to be doing more of, just talking and sharing and listening, but being in conversation. So I was really able to just create more opportunities. And don't get me wrong, I've been supported by coaches as well. So I became a lot more open to having coaching conversation with other coaches who pointed me in particular directions. And they said, and we were having conversations around, well, why don't you just call up clients and ask them directly for a referral? And for me, that felt quite bold and outrageous, and like, who am I? And then I realized, well, that's just all my thinking. I'm just going to do it. And I started doing that immediately. So I started moving to action a lot faster, a lot less time caught in my thinking. I'm just going to take action. I'm going to move to action. and see what happens. And then the next action will be there and see what happens. And then the next action will be there. And that has really shifted things. That has been the shift of seeing that through taking action and creating in that way, things have opened up for me. And I now have gathered evidence that keeps my mind happy. But yeah, that's been really big. And I know that sort of momentum is what's going to keep growing, like moving into that area for me. So yeah, that's
Yes,
definitely in my business.
and it definitely keeps growing because it's not rooted in your will; it's rooted in your experience of who you are being.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
since it's a creation that's coming from being,
Mm-hmm.
it has only one way, and it has to grow. It has to keep expanding.
Yeah.
Yes. And yes, Rose. So you also wrote about your coaching style has become bolder and more impactful. So definitely, this definitely would have mm, changed your conversations with your clients, and it would have impacted them as well in many
Yeah.
different ways. So I would love to listen about that.
So, and this has been quite noticeable for me that before India, before India, I had an understanding and a grounding in being, but I felt it was something that we would get to after a certain amount of time. And I was like, some people might not get it, or maybe, oh, I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. So again, I had a lot of thinking about it. I had experiences in India through seeing myself in the speakers, by seeing that we are one and the same, that what the speakers were talking about is accessible for me. I'm not where they are, they're not where I am. We're all on this path, and some are a lot more practiced than me. That's fine. How amazing that I get to learn and be in that space, and all this experience is being shared and ways are being pointed to. And that was quite revelated. That was big for me. That had a big impact in the actual event. And the upshot of that is that I had an experience the day after the Indian event, the in Mumbai, where we did a breathwork session with someone called Wolfgang, and he led it. He's a breathwork coach, and I really integrated my understanding of my being, of the fact that I was reflecting on that I met a number of people who I was very drawn to in India at the event. You had a very deep, how I was experiencing them as a deep sense of calm, that they were open, loving, they were very still, and I felt very safe. And I had this image of being in a lake with them. Like I was almost like they were a lake, I was a lake, we were near each other. And I expressed this to someone, and it might even have been to Wolfgang in conversation. And he looked at me and he said, that's because that's you. That's how you are. That's your being. And I realized that it moved from an intellectual understanding into something shifted into my body. And it just something I realized in that moment, that how I am being is being reflected back to me through everyone who I am meeting. And that is absolutely incredible. What a gift, but also that I am this lake. And that's where I am at my best in coaching. That is one of my skills. So when I came back from India, I just started bringing that knowing, that sense of like, I am this lake, I am deep, I can hold space and allow others to be seen in my waters and feel safe. They're not going to drown. They feel safe with me. And I can reflect their being back to them in that way. And I've just started bringing that into the first conversations that I was having. And that felt bold to me. That felt now I'm like, of course, this is what I do. Like a few weeks later, I'm like, yeah, this is what I do all the time. But the first few times, it felt very different. But the results have been that I've then been able to step into, I've been asking for increased amounts of money for working with me. I've just been playing with it a lot more
Wow.
and creating clients in that way. And that's been really different. So there's been this double edged of being bold and being and feeling more at ease with who I am, of how others maybe have experienced me, but I hadn't allowed myself to experience or see myself in that way.
That's 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 so you know, that's a tangible evidence that you have created, which
Yeah.
which can be seen, which can be felt, which can be
Mm-hmm.
experienced, and it shifts the way you serve, and it
Yeah.
has. Thank you so much for sharing, Rose. And yes, the most important one, I think two more. I'm at more ease with myself than ever before. I think this connects back to what you
Mm-hmm.
spoke just now, uh,
Yeah.
with your experience. And the most
Mm-hmm.
important one, I'm creating greater connections with my partner and children as a result. Would love to listen.
And actually, it was your sharing really brought that home for me in India. Um, I think there was a couple of things. I think I think it was Steve who said, it was Steve or Ankush, I can't remember, but how we are at home is how we are everywhere. Like how we are
Yes,
being within four walls of our home is actually our truest representation of ourselves.
yes,
And I've had this sort of awareness, this that I'm able to show up to coaching calls. I'm able to be in like with a room full of other coaches and be in a particular way. And that doesn't necessarily translate to how I'm being at home. It's not, it's I can be that sometimes, but not all the time. And there was a disconnect there. And what I really have, I was very, very moved by how you acknowledged your dad, how you acknowledged your children, and how you acknowledged your whole experience, and brought your family into the whole of the Mumbai and India experience. They were all there, you were a team together. And I realized that even though my coaches have been saying, you don't keep yourself separate, intellectually knowing this and actually being it had been two different things. And something again really shifted for me in that experience of being with you and having that acknowledgement of your family. So since I've come back, I've been much more mindful and forgiving to myself, actually, because this isn't a place I want to give myself a hard time over. But I see that being that lake, that calmness, not in a fake way, because my daughter can pick it up as soon as it's some kind of fake calm. She knows, she sniffs it straight away. But being me, more with my children and my partner, and just slowing down even more to this beautiful connection that we have and cultivating that has it's been amazing. And it doesn't mean it's all perfect because my children are small, they're 4 and 7 and emotional, and but I'm much more accepting of how that accepting of being more at ease with myself. I'm much more able to be accepting and at ease with how they show up and see that when they're expressing that a big emotion of that as 4-year-olds do, that it's okay and it doesn't have to mean anything and that it passes and that the love and connection is still there. And the same with my partner. Cultivating my relationship with him has become now much more important, and it's increased in volume of how important it is to me, because I see how safe and connected it helps us feel, but also the rest of my family. So that's been really a big shift for me. It seems so obvious talking about it now, but for some reason I had some stories around it really that I was uncomfortable with, and didn't really know what to do with. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Rose. And the experience uh, for me, thank you for sharing and acknowledging what I shared, my story there. And I would like to tell you that the experience for me has been deepening
Mm-hmm.
more than before, even after the event, and it still continues to be deepening every single day. And in the process of creating this event, I got so busy that my younger one started missing me. And he was immediately after the event, he was diagnosed with depression. And it was a message for me that life is, as Steve Harrison once coached me on, that life is not this or that. It's this and that. And uh, you know and somewhere I missed that in the process. But it still is a great lesson that I learned, and I committed to spend more time and be more available to my kids. And I disconnected myself for a long time so that I could give them my full attention, to my younger one especially. And I thank my mom, to whom, as a tribute, I created this Ultimate Experience India. And most importantly, I thank Steve Harrison for giving me that opportunity to share my story behind the creation of this experience. And I thank my kids and my dad for being available there. And once we were home, I thanked I all of us, especially me and my dad. We spoke about, we missed our mom. And we really reflected on what shift has been created. Even today, this is the only thing that I and my dad keep talking about: the kind of changes, the kind of impact. And all this has happened because I now feel, as you said, this is one of my declarations, that I'm being the safest space I can be, guided by the presence I am. And and I'm I love the change that I'm seeing in my child. When I messaged Steve about what has happened with my child and that I might not be available for a few days, he messaged me that, listen to your child. And I started listening, being more available, and the conversations now are very different, very amazing. And I see great change, and there is a lot of hope for him to recover very soon. And this has been impacting my health positively, and my family in many different ways, the way it has impacted your life. And since I'm talking to many of our friends, I'm sure many of us have experienced these shifts in our lives through the process of being there at the Ultimate Experience India.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for sharing that, because it's really beautiful. I think it's very easy. I can see how it's very easy for us not to listen to our children. And actually, they are these mirrors, aren't they? Constantly reflecting back to us, where in their innocence of the very clearly, like how we are being, they reflect back our state of being all the time. And there's always this opportunity to lean in and shift. And I think you've just explained what all that can look like. So thank you for sharing that.
And before we close this, I'm excited to share an incident that happened last night. And sorry, before last night. And it was about 10 I think 10 p.m. and my kids were ready to go to bed, and I had to send a text message to a friend, and the text message, well, not was urgent, but then I had a desire to send this message to him to make him understand something. And there was something which was not going right, and I was feeling that I have to help him understand this, and I was typing this text message. And when my kid came to me and he wanted to spend some time talking to me before he goes to bed, and I said, I'll be there in another 10-15 minutes, knowing very well that in another 10-15 minutes he might already have gone to sleep. And meanwhile, so he left. He was in my dad's bedroom with my dad, and I was typing this message in my room. And I had just typed a paragraph when I suddenly noticed, who was I being? This is not that important compared to my commitment to be available for my kid, which is more important to me. And how would this impact him? And you know what? I switched off my mobile, and I went back immediately to my kid and spent around 30 to 40 minutes talking to him, jokes, and having some fun. And then he went to sleep. I came back and I didn't send that message. And your miracle, the next day morning, and I mean, that is yesterday morning around 10 o'clock, I was having a cup of tea, and the friend who I was sending this message called me. We spoke for a very long time, and the need for this message was just over, and there was no need for this message anymore. And it shifted to a different dimension, and the conversations turned so friendly, so loving, that our relationship changed, and it elevated to a whole different dimension and level. And I reflected, this is Gary Moeller told me from another experience that, Ranjan, you know what, this happened there. He also shared on the stage on that day that my child was not well even a day before the event, and so he was missing me because I was busy in the event and everything. So he said, Dad, you have brought us to Mumbai, but you're not spending time with us, and you're out there, so spend some time with us. So I felt that, and I took him to the Juhu beach in Mumbai. And when I decided to be with him for some time at least, and I took them to the beach, the moment we sat there, I saw Gary Moeller walking in front of me. And he was the only person I had not connected with during those 3-4 days. And I had this at the back of my mind that I have to connect with Gary. And here he was right in front of me. And Gary said, Ranjan, do you know why this happened? Because of your commitment to be available for your child.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened day before yesterday. And my conversation with my friend shifted a lot, and there was absolutely no need for this message to be sent. We understood ourselves at a whole different level. And I realized, wow, that's what brings us back to, I think, what Steve Harrison says is that the most important change or transformation, the opportunity for the biggest transformation lies within the four walls of your home. Mm-hmm. That's where it actually starts. And I'm loving this experience more and more. And it's an honor to listen to your experiences in the same way, Rose. Thank you again. Thank you for this magnificent conversation. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for creating an evidence for everybody who will watch this, who will listen to this, and who you are going to share your experiences with, and for your clients, for your kids, for your partner, for your family. and for your business. Loving you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjan.
Thank you for being who you had been to be with us at the Ultimate Experience, India.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rose.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.